Inevitably, I think the immediate focus would be on the likely change in the relationship with the United Kingdom, because I think it's now inevitable that one way or another there's going to be a very significant change in the UK's relationship with the European Union. In that context, while Mr Michel was anxious to state that the EU was ready to negotiate a free trade agreement with the UK, it also wanted to promote a level playing field. Can I ask you, Taoiseach, do you have a sense of how long such a free trade agreement would take to negotiate? There's a lot of suggestions going around that a lot of these agreements could be done in a year, but international experience would suggest that they take a very long period to negotiate because there's so many detailed chapters. Secondly, do you know if Mr Michel is minded to support, for instance, a common approach to social insurance throughout Europe, where we have many workers on the move across borders and where there are small protections in relation to areas like pensions, but in relation to social insurance, should somebody fall ill or become unemployed, there's very little cross-EU protection. And various commissioners have mentioned this as an objective, but given the dominance of your own EPP party, does the EPP agree with the common protection of standards for workers who become unemployed or disabled or ill throughout the EU?
How long will it take to negotiate an FTA? It's hard to know. Nobody can know for sure how long it would take to negotiate a FTA between the EU and the UK. And of course there is a difference between negotiating an FTA and ratifying it. We may well be able to negotiate it in a short period of time, but it would have to be ratified by member state parliaments and possibly even some regional parliaments, and that could take some time too. What I think is that if the new FTA is very close to the status quo, it could be negotiated very quickly. But the more and more the UK chooses to diverge from the acquis, the more and more the UK chooses to diverge from the status quo, the longer it's going to take, obviously, to negotiate that, because the negotiation is going to be all about the difference. So it's impossible to predict, but I think it'd be ambitious to have it done in 2020, but that's what we're going to try to do. In terms of whether we're supportive of the common protection for workers and people with disabilities across the EU, again, as a government, we haven't seen any proposal for that from the Commission. We would have to have regard to what a common proposal would actually mean. I know in my discussions around the Gothenburg Declaration, the countries that were most suspicious of any common EU protection systems for workers or the disabled or the unemployed were the Nordic countries, because they were concerned that it could result in a diminution of their welfare state. A common policy can for some countries mean moving up to it. In other countries it can mean moving down to it. And as a country that has among the highest weekly social welfare rates, one of the most generous carers benefits means tests, and one of the highest minimum wages in the European Union, we would want to ensure that any common European system for welfare or the minimum wage wouldn't result in us reducing what we do now or lowering our standards. It would have to be a minimum floor. But that would be our approach to it.